Hi, I'm Brian Dunn, and welcome to the most important podcast ever. What makes it so important? It's not about me, it's about you. This podcast is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, the moments of resilience, the lessons learned, and the small acts that made a big difference. From retail floors to boardrooms, we'll share the untold stories that shape lives and careers. I'm super excited about this week's show. This week, our guest is Alan Meyer. He's a leadership advisor, he's an executive coach, a consultant, a retail veteran, and musician. Alan has spent decades helping leaders and organizations perform at higher levels. But his leadership journey began where, in my humble opinion, many of the best leaders are forged on the front lines of retail. Al, before we talk leadership, tell us a bit about your journey and introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, well, thanks, Brian. I'm glad I was able to join the show. I think it's been an interesting journey for me because I started in the music industry for quite some time in California. I was a recording engineer there. And then it got pretty competitive and pretty expensive. So I left California and moved back to Wisconsin. And so now what's my next step? And I think, you know, my history, I decided to go and answer an ad in the newspaper for a commissioned salesperson at Best Buy. And then that's really what started my leadership career. I was there for 26 years, as you know. But it's just kind of ironic. I started in music and then ended up in the retail and leadership environment. So it gives you a little bit about my background and my journey.
Yep, we're gonna delve into that. What department did you start selling commission in?
Actually, I started in personal electronics, right? So that was back when we still had fax machines, typewriters.
Boom boxes, baby.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Oh yeah. Boom boxes were the thing. Those nice big Fisher boom boxes.
And Walkmans. In the Walkman, early Walkman years.
Yep. Amazing. Just amazing. You and I share that in common. We both really got our hands on it in a retail commission world. And I've always thought that retail is one of the greatest leadership training grounds in the world because you're dealing with so many people and your fellow employees. What do you think retail develops in leaders, and why has it developed so many strong leaders?
I think, Brian, for me, to your point, you have to work with a lot of different people, right? Both on the consumer end, but yet your teammates. And I think what really built me up as a leader and what I'm currently doing today was just going through those lessons learned and delivering experiences both at the consumer side, but the employee side. And
don't you think there's so many things to learn about human nature on a retail sales floor?
Oh, by far, because every interaction you have is completely different, right? It's not a one size fits all. And you have to identify, how do I provide the right solution for this individual, whether it's your employee base, whether it's your customer base. But it's not a cookie cutter approach, Brian, as I think you know. And just trying to understand what they're looking for from you as a servant of the retail side of the world. But between you and I, you know, I mean, retail is not an easy environment to work in at times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so many challenging things. I think there's also, there's lessons that you can't really learn in a classroom. I always thought one of the most challenging things about running retail and working in retail, excuse me, Alan, is fighting the boredom of it. Same stuff, different day. And good leaders have to keep it fresh. And let me ask you just, and this is a habit that annoys most everybody I know that I do. When I walk into a store, any store, I love to look around and I feel like in 5 minutes I can tell if it's well led. Do you look at stores like that?
Yeah, I do. Now, I'll take it away from the consumer electronics side of the business. Example for me is when I go to a Lowe's or I go to a Home Depot, the Lowe's experience to me, and again, this is just me, it's cleaner, it's more organized, it's more structured, and you can find help very quickly. And I didn't experience that in my time with going to a Home Depot, as an example, right? So I think you're spot on with that statement. I mean, there's so many different challenges in that environment, but Lowe's for me was always my go-to because I always got the better experience at a Lowe's.
That's really interesting. And I wasn't talking specific to consumer electronics at all. I love to walk through malls now, and I once every 2 weeks I'll spend a morning walking through the malls and just sort of getting a read on what's happening there. I think it's really interesting. And of course, with the advent of so much of the business being done online in all the categories now, it's really interesting to watch how brands are modifying. I'm curious. There's a lot I want to get to with you, but when you're looking back in those years, are there leadership lessons that you learned from retail that still guide you today?
Absolutely, Brian. I think some of the best leaders I worked with in the past, it's really about meeting your employees where they're at. And again, I'll go back to it's never a cookie cutter approach, right? Because every individual that works for you or with you is different. And for me, my lessons learned, how do you inspire and encourage and get people excited about what they do day to day? And as a good leader, I think you would probably agree, that is so crucial to the success of any organization.
I do agree. And I think you said this, and it's important. You've got to meet your employees, your team where they are. You've got to meet your customers where they are. And the leader's got to sort of bring those two elements together.
Sure. Absolutely correct.
Are there, tell me about a leader that you work with that had a lasting impact on you.
I can think of a couple. One that really comes to mind is Steve Jensen. He was a leader of mine, and it wasn't about him as a leader. It was how he engaged with you to find out what is it that's important to you as an individual on my team. How can I help mentor you, coach you, teach you, and make you better as an individual, one interaction at a time? And one statement that really came to mind for me with Steve Jensen, when he went to the UK or China and decided to open that market, and then we shut down the market, there was one thing he said to me that has stuck with me for a long time. And he could have come back and said, you know what, I went there, tried to get this market open, and it's me, now I don't know what I'm going to do as a job here. But the statement that really stuck with me, Brian, was he said to himself, in order for things to change for me, I need to change me. And he could have went in any direction, but he didn't. He internalized it and said, what do I got to do differently moving forward based off the lessons learned I had from trying to open that market?
Steve Jensen is a leader I admire as well. In fact, I just saw that he just announced his retirement.
Yeah,
a little
good for
bit
him.
ago. So, gents, if you're out there, I want to get you on the show. I think you have a lot of lessons to teach. Um, so, Al, now you spend a lot of your time working with leaders and helping them craft environments where people can be successful and not just in retail, just sort of in multiple industries. And I'm curious, what are some of the biggest leadership challenges you see today?
I think there's two in the environment today. One will never be different, and you've experienced this in your career. But what I still see a challenge is, how do I arm myself as a leader to help people through very robust change as an organization, right? Every time I work with different leaders, it's still a challenge for those folks. How do I get really good at leading the emotional side of change? And the other one, Brian, with the new AI, that's another big one right now. They're really struggling with, how do I use AI to my benefit and my team's benefit? And how do I get really good at learning that? And those are two things that I've seen any leader I've been working with recently. But the change always comes to mind, and change is constant. I don't care where you work and what the deal is, but there's always change that's going to happen in organizations.
It's inevitable. I got to ask, because I ask all the business folks on the podcast about this. When AI comes up, what do you tell people about AI? What do you think's important that people do with AI?
I think for me, I had to go in and really learn AI myself, because if I'm going to engage with leaders and show the benefits of AI and what it can do for them versus fear it. And then when I talk to folks and leaders in regards to using AI, here's the things you could do. It's not going to replace you as a personal leader, but here's how you can use this tool to help benefit you and how you lead your teams. But Brian, it's definitely still a challenge for leaders, right? Especially at our level of how many years we've been in the business. And for them to shift and make a difference, it's a tough deal for them.
It is absolutely, it is a generational shift. I mean, it is a
Absolutely.
monster change, and it's generating so much fear in the environment. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my job? And
Absolutely right.
and I always tell people, I think the most important thing you can be doing as a citizen, working on yourself, is working with it 10, 15 minutes a day, even. Just get comfortable with what it is and what it can do.
Yeah.
I also think it's really important that we're talking about it. And I think it can be and will be a time of explosive growth and opportunity. I think it's going to have huge impact on small businesses and startups and reducing barriers to entry. And I think we've got to take as much of the fear out of that balloon as we can and fill that up with opportunity. And to really do that, people have to get their hands on it, use it, and play with it.
Yeah, I think
And it,
I think
go
I think
ahead.
Brian, to your point, I think you gotta recommend to people to go into, your point is learning, right? Because if I'm going to speak to leaders about what this could do for them, and I don't know it, I don't understand it, and I didn't learn it myself, and there's so many places and opportunities where you can really learn it and put it to your own use, so that you can relay that back to the people you're working with.
I think that's very wise. And it ties into this question I want to ask you. Why do you think some organizations consistently execute while others struggle with change?
Well, I think again, it starts from this again from my perspective and the work I do. Um, you got to get the head of the leadership really aligned around, what are we trying to solve for? Why is it important? Right? Because in most organizations, it's all about the what and the how versus why are we doing this in the first place? And getting leadership aligned around the why. And then how do I take that why and bring it to life through the interactions of the team members, the frontline employees, so that they feel they have a way to contribute to the overarching mission. And that's what I see.
Yeah, I think it's like the example you mentioned about Jens. He looked inward first. The leader has got to get his or her hands on AI and understand it and share that with the team. I just think it is so simple and yet so powerful. And I think it's a critical role in the building of a culture in an organization. Do you think in this new era we're in, you and I both worked together for a long stretch on the river where culture was such an important thing? It was the hardest thing about scaling a business. How do we maintain our culture? Do you think culture plays as big a role today as it did?
I do. I really do, Brian, because you can't replace the culture, the emotion, the what we're trying to accomplish with AI, so to speak, right? That takes human interaction, one interaction at a time. And if you think about our time in the retail environment, remember the statement, right? Culture is the breakfast of champions, right? And and I whether it's AI or not, I think culture makes all the difference in the world. And whether you have AI or don't have AI, culture is still going to stand pretty strong in any organization you work in.
And the truth of the matter is, AI is going to play a role in every organization.
Yep.
And what we have to really, I think, what leaders today have to guard against, if you use AI to simply be more efficient and rather than exponentially growing your reach and the opportunities, I think it's a big miss. I think this could lead to such a boom, explosive growth for a lot of organizations because increasingly we're not going to be limited by what we do today, but we're going to have the opportunity to expand in the art of what's possible and really delve into it.
Yeah, I think the other thing that concerns me, Brian, is in the as kids today, as they grow up and go through school and college, AI could be a very easy out.
Mm.
How can I do this homework, or how can I do these things without really having to invest my time and understanding by using AI? And I think you got to look at it. How do I use AI to enhance what I'm trying to get accomplished?
And how do we encourage students, employees, our children to use it to help accelerate their learning as opposed
Agreed.
to we can't ignore it. It's here.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
it's like trying to retire smartphones. We're not going back. The genie's not going back in the bottle. Um,
Yep. Yep.
when you look back at yourself and your very interesting and varied career, what leadership lesson took you the longest to learn, do you think?
I would go back to the retail environment for me, I guess I'll preface the conversation I just had with you about Jensen. Internally, I had to look at myself. So when we were going through major organizational change within the retail environment, um, I was one of those, I'll be honest, I was one of those kind of a little bit of the rebel. Why do I need to change? My business is doing well. I don't see the benefit of me trying to shift and follow this operating model. And the moment for me and how I got into the whole change leadership side of things, Brian, is I looked myself in the mirror and said, okay, if I'm going to continue to make an impact as a leader in any organization I work for, I really need to understand what do I need to learn and do to become very good at leading my team through change?
Mhm.
And this happened to me in the retail environment. And we worked for the same company. And I literally went out and I got certified as a change leader practitioner, knowing that if I couldn't lead others through change, I might not be here tomorrow. Right. And I think the big lesson for me was, how do I look myself in the mirror saying, I'm not good at this? And so what do I need to do differently to get good at this? And I think it's very similar with AI today. But I literally went in, invested my own time and effort to really be good at change leadership. And that's what I did. Um, and I haven't looked back since, because it's been a great tool in my toolbox.
And you've built a business around it, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely, I have.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that business?
Yeah. So what I'm doing today, in the name of my business, is Lead to Great. And I framed it up with a tagline that says, "You define the great, we'll help you get there." Right. And so the things I've used are the change leadership component of my toolkit, HBDI, which is it's a way of thinking, mental model. And I use that to assess leaders and get them aligned around, why do I think the way I think about things? And how do others think? And then how do I bring that all together? And so after Best Buy, that's really the road I started to go down. And I did work for Cox Automotive. Most recently, I did work for Chewy, and I did work for Dollar Tree. And currently, I'm doing some work for actually the Gap. And the Gap right now is going through a lot of major change. And the Gap has Banana Republic, it has Old Navy, but they're going through some major restructure and overhaul. And so I got into that business because I love working with people. I love making them better one interaction at a time, and really see the art of the possibility. And that's really why I got into this individual consulting business that I put together.
It's really interesting because you have sort of the big four,
Yep.
and then you have some really gifted, and I include you in this group of practitioners that have sort of set up, I don't want to say boutique, but have built themselves a space between the big folks, the big four really, and how did you identify that market?
Well, I think prior to me doing the independent work, I had the opportunity to work with Accenture, Ernst & Young, all the big four, and just identify what they do, how they do it. But more importantly, I said, okay, there's a niche here that a lot of organizations cannot afford, quite frankly, the amount of money that the big four may charge them. So I said, okay, so how can I put together programs and meet the needs and solutions of the companies that can't afford that high cost? And what I found over time, I didn't have to go out and drive it myself, Brian. People, once they knew who I was and what I could do and what my cost model was going to be, people reached out to me. And that's still the case today. They can go to my website. They can see what I have to offer. And then they set up time with me. We have the discussion. What do you want to solve for? And here's what I can do. And here's what the cost structure is for you.
I think that's really cool. We'll be sure to tag that on this episode so people can visit your website to learn more.
Yeah.
Time is flying on us here. I want to shift gears if you don't mind. So I was years ago, it was after I had left Best Buy. I was in Fargo for a basketball tournament, and I think I was at the Radisson, and in the elevator, there was a sign for Saturday night, Jimmy and the Band of Souls. And I thought about my old pal, all of you guys, Al and Jimmy, of course. And I know you were a drummer for that band. I know music is a passion. You mentioned at the beginning
Yep.
that you worked in a studio. Love to hear how music became such an integral part of your life.
I think for me, the music side of my life, it's an outlet, so to speak, Brian. I have a lot of passion for it. It also gave me lessons learned because I know as a drummer, um, if you don't have a solid foundation in a band like a drummer, it's pretty hard for you to be successful at what you do, right?
Yep.
But I love the music side of the business. I love the interaction with people. I was one of those individuals when I went to school, and when you had to get up in front of your colleagues and give a little spiel or a story, yep. I was the guy in the back of the room going, I'm sweating bullets. I don't want to do this, right? And until I got into the music side of the world, I learned very quickly, you know what? Getting in front of people is not so bad. And I built a very good standing with Jimmy and the Band of Souls. I was a recording engineer in California for 5 years, but it's helped me build long-lasting relationships with people outside just the work environment. And music brings people together. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you know that music definitely brings people together.
There's no doubt about it. How did you choose the drums?
It's kind of interesting when I was growing up with my mother and my father, God bless both of them who've passed on since. But my mother was a great, and my father was well. They were very big in dancing. And so they would go into dancing competitions. And I just had this groove of music. And I found myself at home banging on tables, banging on pots. And I said, you know what? This feels pretty good to me. How do I get into this? And I said, you know what? I'm going to try to learn and play the drums. And so I thank my mother, I thank my father. They really helped me go down that road. But they had a background of, they won numerous dance competitions.
Really?
Yeah, numerous.
What kind of dance?
Jitterbug was a big one for them back in the day. Yeah, swing was a big one for them back in the day. But I just always listened to music. And, I grew up with my mom and dad who were listening to Elvis and all the oldies. And I said, I think I can do this. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this a whirl. And Brian, I'm self-taught. I never took a drum lesson in my life.
Cool.
I just had this really knack. Cool. Yeah, I just had this knack, and I felt good about it, and I just went for it.
I know you lost your mom young.
Yeah.
What a wonderful gift she gave you, though, as a legacy.
Oh,
that love for that.
As you and I talked before, I was 17 years old when she passed, right? And I really didn't see her, even though she was my mother, I saw her as my best friend. And the lessons she taught me and the commitment to family, the commitment and openness to learn from others was just amazing. And as you know, ALS is not a great disease to live through. And her mind was all there, but her body was not. But she taught me a ton, Brian. Just a ton. And she was definitely my best friend. And she gave me a lot of insight and talent as I continue to grow as a person.
That's it's a very tough disease. And I can't even imagine being a 17-year-old and even the years before that when you were part of that journey with your mom. But I think it's a really cool legacy that she left you. And I think it's great how you honor it, Al. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mean to get all heavy on you there. It just occurred.
Oh, no, that's good, man. I donate my time purposely. I invest and donate not only my time but financially, because I just know that all the people that are struggling with that disease, it's not easy. And somehow or some way, if I can contribute and help people find a way to solve for that over the long haul, I'm going to continue to raise the flag and go down the road and see what I can do to help contribute to solve it.
If there's an ALS charity that you feel particularly good about, let us know and we will tag it on the episode. Okay.
I will.
Yeah, that's really cool that that inspired you to pick up the drumsticks. Do you still play?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just moved here to Virginia a couple of years ago, but I just probably a few weeks ago, I got the house in order where I wanted it, and now I have a music room, so I have my drums set up. And every now and then, I'll go in the room and just put on the headset, put on the MP3, and just kind of listen and jam out, so that I can keep my chops up. So,
do you have a camera in there?
In what, the room?
Yes.
No, I don't. But
at some point, you got to send us a little 3 or 4 minute riff, man. We'll put it up for sure.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. And it would be a first for the podcast. We haven't had any music on the podcast. That'd be awesome. When you look back in your career and your long and varied career, Al, what are you most proud of?
One of my claim to fame, Brian, was when we were in the retail industry. And Steve Jensen came to me and said, "Hey, you really ought to think about getting into the service side of the business." And at the time, I think, we weren't doing a good job delivering a great experience for our customers in regards to service. And Sean Skelly comes to mind. He was the guy kind of spearheading that. But I got a call, and you might remember this, Brian, I'm not sure. But Jensen said, "Hey, you need to go interview for this senior director job for services." And I flew in to interview. My interview was on September 11th when the bad things happened. You, Mark Overgaard, I'm trying to remember who else in the moment. You actually were doing my interview. And I got out of the interview and September 11th happened. And I'll never forget it because I had no way to I literally had to rent a car and drive all the way back. Right. Wow. But the claim to fame for me, when we acquired Geek Squad and I was asked to roll that out nationally, I took great pride in that. I'll never forget it. And it was probably one of the best decisions I made because it was something I haven't tried before. It was something that allowed me to learn and grow as a leader in the organization. It was probably the funnest job I had in the organization.
And let's be honest, you rocked the look.
Okay, Brian, here we go.
Nice.
I still have my badge.
That's very, very impressive. I wanted a badge and never got one because I wasn't an agent.
I hear you.
That's so great. All right, Al, we're going to close on a lightning round, okay?
All right.
Best leadership book.
Oh, God, that's a tough one. Don't Eat Alone.
Okay. Most underrated leadership skill.
I think change.
Best advice you've ever received.
Get out of your comfort zone, stretch how you operate, and stretch your leadership.
A leader everyone should study.
Ooh, that's it. I'm a big fan, quite frankly, of Ken Blanchard.
Okay. Favorite song to play on the drums?
Oh, that's not fair.
Come on. So, stream of
consciousness. There's so many. the best song to play probably would be a Bon Jovi tune. And it's not coming to mind right away, but
Okay. All right. Well, John Bon Jovi's music features a lot of hard-driven drumming for sure.
On a Prayer.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can see that. If the best rock and roll drummer of all time.
Oh, Neil Peart.
Okay. And if our viewers or listeners are going to remember only one thing from our conversation today, what do you want it to be?
I would say, Brian, keep yourself open to ongoing learning. I've never stopped. And I've always tried to stay relevant as a leader and constantly continue to learn new approaches, new ways, but don't stop learning. The minute you stop learning, you stop growing.
Alan, I've always had great respect for you and how serious you always were about whatever you took on. You always gave everything you had to it. I am so thrilled for you that things are going well. I really have enjoyed our time together. And I want to thank you for joining us here on the most important podcast ever. So thank you. And that's it for this episode of the most important podcast ever. Big thanks to Alan Meyer for sharing his story, and an even bigger thanks to you for listening or watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with somebody who will find it meaningful. And please subscribe. It's free and it helps us a ton. And it'll help you feel good about yourself, I promise. Hit that subscribe button. You can listen and watch on our YouTube channel. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And I want to thank Thomas and Cassie, the crew here at Streetside Studio 7. And I want to thank our host, Deja Blue House of Coffee, best damn cup of coffee in Alexandria. And I want to thank you again, Alan. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate the time.